Okay, so can everyone see the actual screen? Just making sure that what you're seeing is what I'm seeing.
Yep.
Should be the cover page for Safe Hydraulic Program.
Yep, that's there.
Fantastic. All right, so welcome to the first of a series of webinars Gates Australia will be running in the next few months or so. It's an action initiative started by the Gates US and Gates Australia, I guess, are also rolling out these info webinars. And it's just a great way to inform our staff, channel partners, and end users during this time while most people are actually working remotely. My name is Ken Clark. I'm the National Product Manager for Industrial Fluid. I'll be your presenter in this webinar, so yeah, welcome. It's great to have you on board. So in this morning's topic, we'll be covering an overview of the Gates Safe Hydraulic Program. So those of you that are aware of the program, it'll be more so like a refresher. And for those that are on the call, I guess not aware of the actual Gates Safe Hydraulic Program, it'll be a good introduction to what is actually on offer. We have a number of people on this call, so we actually have you all on mute for practical reasons. We want to try and avoid, I guess, background noise, people talking over each other, anything that will actually detract from the actual presentation this morning. We do have a Q&A sort of section. You might see on the panel there's a question and answer sort of section. That's where you can actually jot down any questions that you may have. And then we'll try and answer those sort of questions as we work through the actual presentation. Now, if we don't actually get a chance to answer your questions, we will actually follow you up in relation to that. I know we're keeping a record of all the attendees that are actually on this call. So yeah, don't be dismayed. We will follow you up post-webinar just to discuss this further. So we are recording the session, and that's more so just to make sure that if people that were trying to actually join this particular webinar and unable to join, we'll be able to pass that recording on to them. So with that all, I guess, mentioned, we'll get straight into it. So during the session, this is what we're looking at covering. First aspect there is what is safe hydraulics, and we'll talk about the background history of how this program got started. We'll also look at certification. It is a Gates certification. The certification is actually is within Gates. It's not an industry thing, but it's something actually we want to actually offer to our employees, our channel distributors, as well as end users, just to make sure that you're well trained and that everybody out there is actually safe. Further to that certification, we actually have TAFE New South Wales, and they're actually a registered RTO. And they actually run this course as it actually fulfills the unit of competency under the AUR TTA 012, which is simply just the fabrication and the installation of fluid power hose assemblies. Okay. I'll also touch on Safe Hydraulic webinar series that we're looking at rolling out in the next 4 months or so. We'll then dive into the assets that are now available to certified safe hydraulic trainers. So we've got printed materials, things along the lines of, counter mats, manual safe hydraulic sort of manuals. There's also a pocket guide. And Gates have actually a dedicated website called safety.gates.com. And there's a number of different sort of assets that are actually available through the actual website. The US, I know, are actually conducting a number of updates to that particular website, and we'll talk about that just to keep you all informed. And then we'll go into the last sort of section there, which is actually tips on how to be successful with this program in the marketplace. And we'll pass it on to our panel of certified trainers, which will actually give you a bit of an introduction in regards to who they are and what area they actually cover. And then we'll close out by just talking about, I guess, the safety sort of training hours surrounding being a certified sort of trainer. All right, so we'll get into the next sort of slide. So these are our certified Gates trainers in Australia and New Zealand. And what I'll do right now is I'll introduce our panel of certified sort of trainers. And as we go through them, I'll get each one of them just to introduce themselves. And just when you do want to talk, guys, just take yourself off mute. And then when you finish, just put yourself back on mute as well. So we'll kick this off. We'll get Ashad to start us off, and we'll go from there.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ashad Ashraf, and my background is predominantly I'm an oil and gas person. Prior to joining Gates, I have over 6 years of experience in oil and gas industry. And right now, I'm working as a product application specialist at Gates, and I've been with Gates for over 2 years now. I got certified as a Gates Safe Hydraulics trainer only a couple of months ago. I consider that a very good achievement. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I come with 2 years of FP industry knowledge.
Fantastic, Ashad. Thanks for that introduction. I'll put Byron on.
Yeah, Byron Jolivet. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So my name is Byron Jolivet. I'm based in New Zealand. I'm the business development manager for Gates. I've been in the industry, and specifically in hose and fittings for around about 15 years now. 8 years is with the Gates product and 2 years with Gates itself. And I've been a certified trainer for a little over a year now within Gates. Really passionate about hoses and really happy with our quality product.
Thanks for that, Byron. Over to you, Murray.
Various roles from my own franchise through to running service centres and working in sales. Yeah, I've been a certified trainer for just over 20 months, and I've been with Gates for just over 2 years as well. Yeah, really enjoy it and think the Safe Hydraulics is a great program.
Thanks for that, Murray. I'll just hand it over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Kent. My name is Nick Economou. I'm the Business Development Manager for New South Wales Fluid Power. I've been involved in the hydraulics industry for about 33 years now. I joined Gates 2.5 years ago and very proud to be associated with such a premium global brand and great product. I've been involved in industry training for many years. And been a Gates certified Safe Hydraulics trainer for the last 2 years, and conducted a few of those training courses myself, and find them to be very helpful. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Last but not least, we'll hear from Rob.
Morning all. Yeah, Rob Mould. I've been in the hose and materials industry much longer than I'd care to divulge, to be honest. I started way back in New Zealand as a young fellow with Dunlop, and we were Gates distributors then. So I look after WA, and again, a certified trainer, so all good.
Thanks a lot for that, gentlemen. So you can actually see we've got a highly experienced team. They've actually gone through the Safe Hydraulics sort of certification program. So thanks, gentlemen, for your introductions. I guess just a brief sort of snapshot on myself. I've been with Gates Australia for over 12 years now, and I have been a certified trainer for several of those years. So just looking at this next slide, I mean, the whole program is born out of the idea that safety should be the #1 concern with anyone working with hydraulics. And we've got a whole range of people on this call with different sort of roles. You've got people that are actually selling hydraulics. You've got those building hydraulics, building hose assemblies, anyone working directly with hydraulic systems. And then you've got your heavy sort of equipment operators. So what we're actually noticing is that people are not getting that in-depth sort of training that used to happen, in the past. You have a service technician that's making a judgment call on a hydraulic hose that they know very little about. You got guys turning spanners on critical hose assemblies without the appropriate sort of training. And this is some of the stuff that we've actually become, I guess, exposed to or seeing actually currently happening out there in the field. So regardless of your role, whether you're working closely with high pressure hydraulics, it actually presents a unique set of risks as well as opportunities that you should be aware of. Now, before I go on to the next slide, we have a picture of a hydraulic incident, which is quite graphic. We have a person that's actually been injured by a hydraulic hose failure. It was actually, I believe, it was a pinhole leak, which caused the actual injury. So if you're a little bit squeamish, now's the time to actually look away. This graphic sort of picture is actually a picture that's been donated to Gates, and it just shows a hydraulic incident. This actually depicts just how hydraulics can be extremely lethal. This injury occurred at low pressure, or what we deem in the hydraulic sort of world as low pressure, at 2,500 psi, which is 172 bar. And this operator was actually fortunate to actually keep his arm. As you can see, it's quite, it's got shock and awe around it. But his arm was actually saved, and his life was saved. And there's cases where we actually know where people have actually either lost arms or worse still, they've actually lost their life. So this is a fundamental reason why we actually offer this safe hydraulic training. It's to educate people of the dangers and the risks surrounding hydraulics. And it's really just there to fundamentally just ensure people are actually safe out there. And yes, it's graphic and it's hard-hitting in regard to seeing something like this, but that's the reality out there in the field. And we really want to draw, I guess, the attention not to get complacent when working with hydraulics, as there are associated risks, and those risks are real. So, I mean, you might have, certain sort of circumstances where, someone actually, hands you a spanner and says, oh, go and take that hose assembly off and tell me what type of thread or coupling fitting, it actually has. And there's other aspects that need to be considered before you actually pull that hose assembly off, off mobile equipment, for instance. I mean, the stuff you need to look at is how long has that system been down? Is there residual pressure still in the system? These are the things that you actually need to think about. Even if the pressure has been turned off, there are still risks that you need to be aware of. So we'll go into the next sort of slide, which talks about, what is Gates Safe Hydraulics? So the actual program was developed in 1995, and it's become more of a focus within our society as a whole. And you guys will be all fairly familiar with the aspect of, we want to see you, return home the same way or even better than the way you came. And that's the same sort of mindset that most employers are taking on work sites. Now, when this actual program was released, that was the kind of like the actual manual that you can see to your right look like. And it was also around the same time that OSHA and MSHA began their sort of safety maintenance meetings. So it tied in really well in regards to what we offer versus what some of the industry safety leaders actually offer. It's also one of the first sort of safe hydraulic sort of programs offered in our industry. The program is actually the backbone of what Gates wants to achieve in the industry. When you're looking at a global sort of manufacturer that makes enough hose to, circumnavigate the globe about 3 or 4 times, we want to make sure that we actually make hydraulic products that are not being used in an unsafe manner. We want to make sure that our products out there in the actual marketplace are used safely, they're trimmed correctly, and they're actually applicated appropriately within the actual marketplace. So as you can see with the Safe Hydraulic program, it'll be looking at covering a number of different aspects surrounding safety with hydraulics. some of those sort of topics will be covering hose and coupling identification. We'll be looking at assembly fabrication. We'll also be looking at routing and installation. With assembly fabrication, we actually want to show the actual user or the recipient in regards to what's the recommended practices. And we were very aware that there's a lot of bad habits out there, but actually having a structured step-by-step process makes it very clear in regards to what is required from the first step to the last step. We also look at routing and installation. How you route a hose is very fundamental in regards to how much life you get out of the hose. And how well that hose is actually installed is also just as critical. So we actually provide all this sort of sound knowledge of product functionality just to ensure that the hose assemblies built are suitable for the application. The fabrication process and then having the awareness of actually identifying potential risks of hose assemblies in situ is just as paramount. It also covers troubleshooting, which we actually educate the individuals to say, well, let's identify what actually caused the hose to fail, just to avoid that from being repeated. The next aspect there is a foot in the door. You find that normally people don't want to see a salesperson, but this is a great avenue in regards to going, okay, well, let's talk about safety on site and provide, I guess, the expertise throughout the industry. So it's definitely not a sales pitch for Gates products, but it certainly looks at the topics that everyone should be familiar with, which to say, to stay safe and to be successful when working with hydraulic assemblies. And then we'll actually look at just some of the newer sort of fresh sort of assets that we have available, just to complement the actual training that we're actually going to be running. What's exciting about it is that we're actually looking at offering a digital aspect to the training, which actually makes it probably more easy to get access to. But we'll actually provide you with that information as that products or those products become available, both tangibly and also digitally. So let's have a look at this next slide. So in this slide over here, we can actually see for those people that actually recipients or receiving this information and are very interested, how do you actually become a certified sort of safe hydraulic trainer? Well, firstly, reach out to your Gates representative to indicate an interest in the actual safe hydraulic program. We also want you to participate in a Gates hydraulic product workshop or seminar. And then we actually want you to complete an actual questionnaire. Now, with that questionnaire, we just want to ensure that, I guess, we want to record your understandings and get a good feel of that you fully understand what's been covered. Hence the reason why there's actually an exam. And I believe that exam score for you to actually receive a pass is at 85%. And the reason why it's that high is for obvious reasons. We just want to make sure that you're fully capable as well as aware of the information that's actually been covered. Then the next step is to actually facilitate a safe hydraulic training sessions with either co-workers or clients or even prospective sort of clients. And you actually do that with a certified Gates safe hydraulic trainer. And the certified trainer will actually verify the completion of that. The idea behind that is actually to almost like tag team and go through it. And you can see the progression in regards to how we actually certify relevant personnel. And then the last step in relation to this is you actually complete a hydraulics exam with a minimum score of 97%. Now, the recipients that actually this is actually applicable to is obviously Gates employees, and then we actually offer certification to Gates distributors. And that's as far as we kind of hold it. We do offer this actual training to end users. So the end users on this call, we most certainly will be very happy to provide this sort of training both to you and your colleagues and the relevant people on site. The next stage in the second half of the slide actually talks about the frequency of seminars that need to be conducted. As you can see there, it mentions that 3 safe hydraulic seminars have to be completed in the past 6 months. And the thinking really behind that is just to ensure that you're constantly, refining your craft, or you're constantly presenting in front of customers, potential end users as well, in relation to the requirement. And the frequency of this is actually generated off the back of OSHA as well as MSHA. And it's actually, it's covering, I guess, the actual clock-in hours and the amount of time that's actually required to hold your certification. So as you can see, we're actually looking at, during this period in time, that, we're actually looking at offering these webinars. We've got 7 lined up, and this is a schedule of the dates that we're looking at rolling this out. So this is actually the first time that Gates Australia is actually offering this sit-down sort of program, where you can actually access all this information remotely. As mentioned before, there's 7 sessions. Not counting this one, we kind of kick off the first one on the 9th of June, and then that runs right through to the 8th of September. And this will actually give you really good insights in regards to the program, and possibly credits in regards to the actual seminar that we do run. So yeah, please register your interest for the program, and we can actually book you in for a safe hydraulics sort of seminar. I'll just go through some of the topics that we'll be looking at covering in the next few months. The first one there is safe hydraulics. So it's staying safe in the hydraulic work environment. And really what we're looking at here is actually identifying potential risks and eliminating those risks, or minimizing as best we can. The next sort of topic there is actually hose construction and failure modes. It's very important for our end users to understand the construction of different hoses, as they perform very differently. A good example of that is braided hose versus spiral hose. And having, I guess, a hose that works to a certain sort of working pressure is largely due to the actual construction of that hose. So it goes to that, but also what's fundamental about that is the failure modes. Understanding what actually caused the hose to fail can actually be very valuable, both to the end user as well as to you, the actual customer, providing that information. It's that whole mentality of, the definition of insanity. Why do the same thing that's producing the same result? Let's work out a way of actually going, well, this is actually what has caused the failure. Let's do something different to actually improve that service life for that particular hose. The third topic there looks at selecting the right hose for safe assemblies. We want to make sure that you're putting a hose in an application that calls for the appropriate working pressure. A good example of that, if the hose is actually rated to 4,000 psi, and you've got the hose in an application that's operating at 5,000 psi, straight away that's not a sufficient hose in that particular application. So going through that sort of topic will actually provide you with the insights surrounding that. And then we'll go into looking at understanding hydraulic coupling, construction, and failure modes. We'll then move into introduction to proper thread identification. I know I've been called out to a number of different sort of sites where this was a major issue for the guys out, for the fitters or the service techs out on the floor. They just didn't have that sort of knowledge of identifying the difference between an SAE 45, versus a JIC, 37 degree. So we actually go in depth in regards to understanding the difference between the threads, but also what's important about that is actually understanding what the threads pressure ratings are. So I'll talk a bit further about that at a later stage. The next one there is navigating the Gates hydraulic catalog. Knowing what we actually offer and knowing where to find it can be really beneficial in your day-to-day sort of work. And then the last aspect there is actually understanding the equipment overview and the safe operation of our equipment. And that covers, crimpers as well as cut-off saws. So you can actually see that, by actually attending most of these sort of webinars, it'll actually provide you with a great insight in regards to what we actually have on offer. These are some of the assets we actually have available. So this is current at the moment with the actual program that's on offer. So as you can see here, I'm not sure you can see my mouse, but that's our latest sort of safe hydraulic manual, We've also got a safe hydraulic sort of pocket guide, and we've also got a counter mat. Now, these are fantastic add-ons in regards to, complementing, I guess, the information that you're receiving as a recipient of the actual program. And there's a lot of information that we do cover within the actual course itself. And this is a great way of actually just going over it and just remembering and cementing what you've just learned. So we've also got a training report log. There's training application information that's available. There's a safe hydraulic exam that you'll be issued going through the actual certification process. And then we actually offer training certificates. And these certificates actually acknowledge that you've actually completed the requirements around the actual course. And we know that in some customers actually don't allow certain personnel on site unless they can actually verify or show a safe hydraulic certificate. Further to the assets that are actually becoming available to certified trainers, that we can actually give you access to the safe.gates.com website as a trainer, and you'll actually get access to a whole range of further information. But you can also download the safety training materials, and also we're working towards trying to make custom certificates for training and attendees. So as a certified trainer, you can log on to the site, create your own actual certificate, and we can actually have that signed off then and there in the convenience of your computer. So all these assets are now becoming available, and as they do become released, because the US are driving most of this, then we'll actually make sure that you're aware of it as well. So how can a certified trainer use this program to actually benefit the market? So as you can see, the training actually provides a whole range of information. But actually being on site and actually looking at where hoses can be replaced or getting into the practice is really beneficial. What we find is actually once you've done the actual training with your client or a potential end user, you can actually do a bit of a site walk around. And you can mention certain things like, oh, that hose looks like that cover's compromised. And you normally get the feedback, oh yeah, I don't know why that's there. We should get that replaced. But all you're doing is you're just highlighting, potential risks on site that have gone unnoticed. And at the same time, you're reducing liability by helping people remove unsafe assemblies from the service. It also provides in regards to assisting in developing equipment. So you can do a walk around, do some hydraulic inspection sort of programs, and eliminate sort of hose failures. And then also you're actually helping the end user in regards to costly sort of downtime, while at the same time increasing safety. What's also great about the actual program is that we actually offer crimper training. And it's not a matter of just going, okay, well, we've sold you the hose, we've sold you the capital equipment, and you have a quick 5-10 minutes sort of rundown in regards to how it operates. Now, we'll actually be there, help you out in regards to the functionality of the machine, teach you how the machine actually works, talk about maintenance, maintain the actual particular crimper, how to use the cutoff saw, and that just really, cements and builds that trust with our distributors as well as our end users. So it's just a great opportunity to build a relationship with your customer as you kind of journey along this way of providing a safe sort of workplace and safe in regards to practicing safe hydraulic principles. The last point there is VAVE, which is value add, value engineering assistance. And that's something we can actually draw from in relation to our product application engineering group. And that's really what can help in regards to improving the actual the installation, how hose assemblies are installed, just to make them more effectively set up within a hydraulic system. And then the results of that is that you get maximum hose life and performance from your hydraulic equipment. So these are some of the benefits that this actual program actually offers. So what I'll do right now is I'll hand it over to a couple of our certified safe hydraulic trainers, and then just have them share their experiences with the Gates Safe Hydraulic program. So Maury, I'll get you to talk about your experience with the actual program, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Thanks, Ken. So one of mine I've picked out is in the mining sector was a fixed plant maintenance company, and they predominantly conducted repairs on cylinders, motors, pumps, etc. Nothing to do with hose and fittings. So in discussions with them and winning part of the business to expand their scope of supply, they understood the need to be fully trained in what their staff are doing in relation to the hydraulic hose and industrial hose assembly making process. So as we went through that, they knew the risks, but with our guidance, they could see the benefit to an in-house hose program. So for the customer, one of the main value adds they got from the program was obviously their staff were fully trained, but we went through preventative maintenance to a fairly high amount of time. So their client base didn't have a planned change-out schedule for hoses on any of their fixed plants. They just kept using it until something failed and then hoped they had a spare or someone could come out and fix it for them at the time needed. So the Gates end user conducted site audits once they were qualified and prepared a program which they presented to their client. This basically involved regular inspection and a change-out schedule for the relevant hose assemblies. Some of them were high risk, some were low risk, but they all bundled it together so the end user could see what needed to be done and when. So resulting from this, the Gates end user saw an increase in their sales and actually increased their staffing levels to keep up with the demand of the work that they created. The end user also saw the reduction in downtime and risk due to the unexpected hose failures. So what this proves is that preventative maintenance works. Once everyone fully understands that, people are safer at work and everyone wins in the scenario.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's such a really good sort of insights in relation to, you know, what the benefits this actual program can actually have. So it's, yeah, thanks for that, Maury. Really appreciate your sort of feedback in relation to that. What I might do is I might get Nick on the line, and Nick, I'll actually get you to talk about your experience with the Safe Hydraulic program.
Thanks, Ken. So similar to Murray, one of the customer segments did some training with was an end user, and they're involved in the mining, the drilling side of things, and their equipment gets bashed around a fair bit. So they sort of had a requirement there for being independent, being able to make their own assemblies. So with one of our distributors, we worked the Safe Hydraulics program into their team, and it included some of their fitters and mechanics and even some of their operators. To give them an understanding of hydraulics and safety predominantly, and just to ensure that you know, these guys are using the latest and correct procedures and instructions when it comes time to making hose assemblies. So you know, it's a Gates end-to-end system, and quite important that it's done correctly so they can get the right service life in some of those harsh conditions. So a real good bonus for the customer and end user there. So it was well received, and the training sort of done over a couple of days with 2 different shifts, so it worked really well. Another customer segment was some high reach equipment service provider. So these this particular customer is involved in servicing their own brand of elevated work platforms and high reach and access equipment, and saw the value to have their own hose vehicle to service their equipment. So the training package was basically put forwards to them, and basically a value proposition to their whole business. And now, again, sort of reaping the benefits of being able to do their own hose replacement on their time and as required. And also they've actually seen that periodic inspections now with the access to hose replacement in their workshop or mobile, they can reduce some of the you know, unexpected hose failures that normally get done by a contractor at very high cost. So again, just ensuring more of the reliability of their equipment and reducing some of their maintenance costs. So look, you know, the results I suppose are different for each one, but you know, with Safe Hydraulics, I suppose that, you know, the safety is the first concern and the priority here, and it's not all about just that Gates product, but safety in methods and procedures. And I think the bonus is that we relate that back to the products that we have, and people can see the benefits firsthand.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What was some of the feedback from the actual various sort of clients, Nick, in relation to the program itself?
Yeah, the feedback was good because we actually got asked to come back out and do some more of the on-site training. So obviously people don't know what they're getting into, and they sort of think training's going to be something in a classroom that gets very boring. But there's a little bit of hands-on, with this, and we're able to do some physical stuff as well. So it was well received by the customer to the point that we got rebooked to do additional training to more of their staff. So obviously saw the value that it added.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think having the practical component within the actual Safe Hydraulic program really just it kind of hits home. I've run a few sort of seminars, and prior to starting it, people have this perception of going, oh yeah, look, I know everything that you're going to cover today. I don't really need to be here. And then we actually go through the actual presentation, and then we do the practical component. So guys, we just covered all this information. Let's see how we actually go in regards to fabricating a hose assembly as per best practice. And that's when the proof of the pudding kind of comes out, and that's when you see where their perception of what is the correct way of doing it versus what the correct way is. There's a difference between the two. So having that practical component where we actually get recipients to make a hose assembly as per the recommended sort of fabrication process, it really makes it real for them. They're not just sitting in a classroom style sort of setup, just listening to someone present all day or half day. So that's what's really unique and what's really beneficial in relation to it. We try to keep it as practical as possible. So just looking at the sort of next slide over here, how can a certified sort of trainer use this program to actually benefit the market? As you can see, the Gates Safe Hydraulic Training presentation actually meets the requirements of OSHA safety maintenance sort of meeting. So it actually falls in line with the requirements surrounding that. So if you ever are invited to actually present a Safe Hydraulic sort of program to a distributor or an industrial sort of consumer, an OEM, please be sure to engage with the safety representative on site. They also need to know that you're presenting. And the reason for that is mainly just to make sure that they get provided a listing of the actual person, the personnel or the recipients in the actual presentation. We also want to make sure that they sign off on the people that have been trained in regards to safety, and then the safety manager also requires to log that information to OSHA in relation to it. So these are some of the aspects that are really beneficial. I know with some of the mine sites that I've actually visited and actually done some Safe Hydraulic sort of training, I most certainly involved the safety manager on site. Sometimes the actual safety manager reaches out and says, look, we need this sort of training here on site. So that's also a benefit. But what we want to make sure is that when you actually are on site, that you are in touch with the safety manager, and that anyone that's actually running or going through the actual course itself is registered not only with the actual program itself by Gates, but also through the actual safety manager on site. All right, so we're actually nearing the end of the actual webinar. I know we're kind of heading or running ahead of time in relation to it. But all questions and comments, please feel free to send it through the QA sort of panel or that sort of section. You can also email me on kent.clark@gates.com. I'd be happy to receive your sort of questions and comments surrounding the actual Safe Hydraulic program. But also please join us for upcoming sort of hydraulic sessions that we've got scheduled. I know on Tuesday, the 26th of May, we're actually running a more of a niche sort of topic, and it's actually covering the harmful effects of ozone on hydraulic hose. And that's something that I'll be looking at presenting. And then I guess the 9th of June, I think it's a couple of weeks from there, we're actually running the first one of the series of webinars surrounding safe hydraulics. And these are little snippets in regards to just getting insights in regards to the program. And the topic for that one is actually staying safe in a hydraulic sort of work environment. So yeah, real great sort of topics to get involved in, get your staff or colleagues registered and getting involved in relation to that. I also want to make you aware of this meeting sort of center. This just provides access to Gates personnel during this period of time where we're going through. And it gives you the option of video conferencing, telephone, as well as emails. And it's simply just filling in that form, and one of our Gates representatives will actually be in contact with yourself. So what we'll do now is we'll just allocate a few more minutes in regards to answering some of the questions that have come through, and we'll go from there. Sorry for the pause. I'm just trying to get a visual of the questions that may have been sent through on this webinar. Sorry about that. I was actually on mute, so apologies for that pause. I was actually going through a bit of information in regards to the questions that have been asked. So one of the questions that have been asked is what are some of the questions that are, or what are some of the topics that are actually covered within the Safe Hydraulic program? Some of the key sort of topics that we look at there is troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is probably one of my favorite topics, only because it's really practical. It kind of looks at what caused the hose to fail. So looking at the failure mode and going, well, okay, how can we change this from reoccurring? Sometimes we see hoses that actually come in and the cover's been abraded to the extent that it's actually exposing the reinforcement. So in that sort of scenario there, we want to actually work out, well, what's causing that hose to be abraded so dramatically? In those sort of scenarios there, we can actually look at rerouting, or we can use cable ties and a whole range of different things to actually try and avoid that from being an issue. Most sort of vendors would, or hose replacement sort of centers would simply just take that hose assembly and then just replace it, which means it just repeats the same issue going forward. Another sort of key aspect or key sort of topic in relation to that is thread identification. Understanding which threads are compatible, amongst, between a male and a female, and the type of thread is really ideal. It's really beneficial in regards to the end user out there in the field. So what's great about something like that is that not only will you get deformation that could potentially happen when you using the wrong threads, but you'll also find that you'll avoid potential coupling leak. And these are some of the points that are really critical in regards to understanding the variations of terminations that are on offer and out there in the field. What's also really beneficial about the actual training is that the actual thread, the thread qualifications. So the thread working pressure qualifications are really vital. So you might look at a scenario where you're using a JIC versus a BSP, for instance. So a JIC actually has a higher sort of working pressure thread type versus a BSP. And how that's beneficial, how that's practical, is if you're plumbing up, just say, a high pressure hose, and the actual couplings actually are rated to a lower pressure, you've just downgraded the working pressure of that particular hose. So what you want to make sure is you understand the working pressure of the thread type, not only just the coupling end of the interaction between the hose and the actual coupling. So these are some of the sort of topics that we'll look at covering. So I hope in regards to some of the topics, that question that was asked, in regards to the topics that are covered, these are just two topics of some of what we actually look at in relation to the Safe Hydraulic program. So yeah, look, I just want to thank the panel of certified trainers that have been on this call. Thank you, Murray and Nick, who have been able to share in regards to how Safe Hydraulics has actually been really beneficial to them. I'd like to thank all the webinar sort of recipients who have actually, listened through this actual call. And yeah, I mean, the fundamental #1 sort of priority there is just to make sure that everyone's safe out there. And this is a great avenue in regards to making sure that we can maintain that safety, particularly through this course. So thank you for your time. And yeah, we'll look forward to having you, speaking with you in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye for now.